I had been a lurker for a long time and decided to make an account just to tell this story. This is the most bizarre thing I have ever experienced. Growing up, my grandmother used to always tell me a story about how the week before I was born, her and my grandfather had my parents over for dinner. They had lived down the street from one another, so this was a common thing. The phone rang just as they were about to sit down. My grandmother picked up the phone and the man on the other end asked for Jacob, which was just so happened to be the name my grandparents had picked out for me. This is relatively a unique name, I think, at least for someone in New Hampshire, where everyone at the time was just naming their sons Michael. My grandmother laughed and said, "He isn't here yet. Try again in a week," and said she would take his number. This was before caller ID for me to call back later. The man did give her his number, and she wrote it down just as a joke for my parents to remember. Time went on as normal. I was born and happily named Jacob. My grandmother, for whatever reason, decided to keep the note that she had scribbled the man's number down on. It was stashed away in a photo album that was soon to be filled with pictures of me. She loved to tell this story, so I heard it many times. Flash forward 25 years to tonight. Literally, this evening, I was visiting my grandparents with my fiance. She just happened to propose 2 weeks ago, and they wanted to flip through our albums to show her that what I was like as a baby. The scrap paper isn't there. My grandmother grabs it happily and begins blurting out the story. She'd never heard it before, and as this was the first time she'd met my grandparents since we lived far from them, she asked to see the paper, and her face goes white and says, "This was my phone number growing up." Now my fiance is from Virginia and my family is from New Hampshire, so it's not like our families knew each other even vaguely 25 years prior. She is 25 years older than me, so she would have already been born when the call was made to my grandmother, and she lived in the same house from the time she was born till the time she left for college. The number was definitely her family's when the call was made 25 years before. The only conclusion we could come to was that her dad must have been using the phone and misdialed while looking for someone named Jacob, and it just happened to be my grandparents' number. The saddest and kind of eeriest part of this story is that my fiance's father passed away last year. We can't even ask if he remembers.